Yo, what's up? How is everyone doing? This is Roy from Rossonari TV, and today we're going to talk about the tactical approaches that we saw in the Juventus Milan game, mostly from my perspective and the things that I saw, and maybe even just covering a little bit of the dumb arguments we had in the post match, a lot of misunderstandings, etc., etc. Anyway, AC Milan versus Juventus, one of the great Italian fixtures of the Serie A. 1-1, pretty decent result. Milan remains unbeaten in the Serie A. We are second behind Inter. So far, not bad. Not bad for our first 5 days. Now going to our fifth day. So one thing I do want to say right away is that when the season started, and we were looking at the calendar, I was hoping. I was saying we had, we started off with Sampdoria, then we had Cagliari, then we had Lazio, then we had Juventus. Right? That was the run, and I was hoping 10 points, and that's what we got. We got 10 points. So far, so good. AC Milan is having a great domestic season so far, and we cannot complain. Actually, we should be pretty happy and feel pretty positive about how everything is going. Then, obviously, we have the Champions League game. We played against a very experienced team, and the men showed the boys how to do it. But boys can only become men. So now it's our turn to become men, and then I think by the time Liverpool comes back, that December 7th game, it's going to be men versus men. We can only hope. We can only hope that Milan at that time will have gained enough experience to fight and even maybe win against a very experienced team like Liverpool at the San Siro. That would be a fantastic result. But anyway, let's get into the game, and I want to get right into some of the complaints that I had with AC Milan's tactical approach. And basically, I'm just going to talk about what I saw, and we're just going to leave it at that. Right away, Milan played with their typical 4-2-3-1 shape that at this point Pioli has been playing, as he has adopted this style for quite a while, and that's how he's going. And this is probably pretty much how he's going to keep on playing the team. I think that is the right thing to do. The team has found a certain level of dynamism and a certain level of let's say memory. So the team is a well-oiled machine playing in 4-2-3-1. But I want to talk about something that we noticed that there are holes in the ship, and teams that we're playing against are starting to exploit those holes. They're starting to exploit those holes. So one thing that we saw from Liverpool is this, and then it is pretty much exactly the same thing that Juventus did to us. So if you look at our defensive posture, it is not necessarily aligned. And the reason why I want to talk about the Liverpool game is because for the first time, I saw a team find players between the lines. So what does that mean? What does that mean essentially? So finding players between the lines, meaning that Liverpool constantly, in their more dangerous attacks, were able to find these solutions that were very smart. Well, for example, they played with they played with a five in the middle, pretty much 3-3, a 3-3, a 4-3-3, which becomes sort of a 4-5-1, etc. But if you look at the way Liverpool played and the way they found the spaces in between the lines, basically what did they do? They had a player come here. So when you say between the lines, what are the lines? This is line number one. This is line number two. If you are playing against a team and you want to beat that team, you have to be able to find the spaces in between the lines. Basically, you are chasing, you are with the ball, you're going towards the goal with the ball, and the midfielders are chasing you. So you're in between the midfield line and you're in front of the defensive line. And this is what Liverpool did to us expertly on a continual basis. And we saw this also against Juventus. Juventus was doing the same thing, adopting a very similar approach. So basically, what do we do? What did they do? Let's look at it. So what did Liverpool do? So let's say they had Salah find this position, or sometimes it wasn't Salah, but mostly it was Salah finding this position right there, just waiting. And then you had their well, let's do it correctly here. So this would be Salah here. So you'd have Salah find their position. They had their fullback come up, and what would happen? When they were building from the back, what would they do? The midfielders would expand the game, right? They would play here. They would open up the channel between, in our case, Leao and Brahim, and then play towards Fabinho over here, right? Fabinho was the one that was maneuvering the ball. And then our midfielder, in this case it was Kessie on that side, would look for Fabinho, would try and pressure Fabinho, but then they would open again the game with these diagonal passes, and they would always go through this channel, the channel between Kessie and Leao. And then as they went through that channel, then they found easily the player in between the lines. This is a brilliant way to break down AC Milan. You have to give Klopp a lot of praise, because he definitely found a way to break our channels, find diagonal balls, and then find the strikers that would hide here inside the channels. And then they can attack, they can put pressure to you, which forces your midfielders to chase. And all of a sudden, before you know it, all our team is in our box, and the opposing team is squashing us. This was a brilliant way, and they kept on doing it for 90 minutes. Liverpool did this for 90 minutes. It was pretty much always the same tactic, They bait the midfielders in, they bait the attacking midfielder or our winger out, open up this channel. They will look for the player coming in for the middle. And for some reason, this is where Pioli made the mistake. Pioli did not counter that. He should have countered this in the second half. He should have probably sacrificed, in that case, maybe Theo Hernandez a little bit more, and put Theo Hernandez on Mo Salah or on Jota. They were doing the exact same thing on the other side. They were applying the same tactic on the other side. And the more you find these players between the lines, the easier it is for a team to attack. Now, because I have coached for so many years, and I've played so many games, when I look at football as a coach, you have to not only just train your team on what to do when your team has the ball, but you have to train, or rather, you have to figure out a system in which your players cover all the field and cover all the spaces. When your opposing coach studies you and figures out how to break that system, then you lose grip of the game. And this is exactly what we saw. Klopp studied Pioli's defensive setup, and then he figured out, by playing the ball in certain areas, certain diagonal passes, channels would open up, and then with the right amount of intensity, of course, and then you can find the players in between the lines. If you find players between the lines, you have broken down a team, and you can attack this team, and then the psychological impact of that becomes quite severe, because you pretty much have dominion over that team psychologically, tactically. And once you have dominion over a team from a psychological aspect and a tactical aspect, then you're most likely going to win the game, unless they hit you on the counterattack and you don't take your chances. So essentially, this is what we saw happen with the Liverpool game, and this is what we continued to see, especially in the first half of the Juventus game, where Juventus literally deployed the same strategy of opening up the channels between the midfielders and the wingers, because and look and finding these vertical passes in between the lines. And then, of course, both Liverpool and Juventus have skillful players. They can, with one touch, they can turn around and they can attack you. Now, once just that tactical, let's say, just that tactical solution is enough to disrupt your team. It's enough to disrupt your team. And unfortunately, Milan, for let's say 45, 90, for 140 minutes approximately, has suffered this problem. Now, but what we saw in the second half was a big difference. Now, we did a live, and everybody was telling me, no, the reason why Milan all of a sudden played better is because we changed the position of a player. But and we had a big discussion about that. But what I saw was not what I saw was actually what really happened, which is all of a sudden we saw that in a defensive posture, Milan, especially the two pivots, Kessie and Tonali, came back lower. Both of them came back lower, making this line much tighter. And Leao on this side compacted himself inside and would not go here. Rather, what did we see? That's what we saw. Hernandez went a little bit further up, and on this side, Kalulu went a little bit further up. And basically, when we saw Milan without the ball, this is the defensive posture that they took. A very nice, compact defensive posture. And if you just take this defensive posture and you move it up the field, it becomes very difficult for an opposing team to play simple vertical football. When you are able to eliminate the vertical football of your opposing team, then psychologically you gain dominion. Okay? And as a matter of fact, when I coached my teams, this is what we trained. We trained, as a matter of fact, guys, some of you know, I have coached for PSG, the PSG Academy, and I've studied the curriculum. A third of that curriculum is on how to position your team without the ball, and then how to move that team compactly. Now, in order to do this, you need a lot of discipline, and your players need to be physically able to do it. So it's not very easy. And I think that the fact that some of our players are just not match fit yet, especially Kessie, then already we're suffering from some injuries, and then I think we were still suffering in the Juventus game. I think we're still suffering from the knockout blow that we got from Liverpool. But we saw that in the second half, Milan changed their posture, and they became much more compact, right? Okay, so all of a sudden, finding that channel right there becomes much more difficult. Because what did Milan do? They weren't baited. Liverpool was kept on baiting our players, baiting our players to move out in position and then look for those channels. But this time, we did not. The team if you notice in the second half against Juventus, the players weren't being baited anymore. Rather, the team was moving together in this compact formation according to where Juventus was playing the ball. So now that makes a huge difference, because now all of a sudden the spaces for Juventus to go through are much more difficult. And that's why we saw that in the second half, specifically, Juventus was not able to find vertical passes anymore. And Milan basically took this compact formation and brought it up the field. And this, now, if Milan would have played like this from the beginning of the match, Milan would have won this game. But I don't know why the team did not do that. That's my question. The question that I cannot answer is why did the team was too liberal. You saw the players kind of just separate from the pack. And that's what Liverpool was able to do to us very, very, very well. They were able to separate us from the pack by playing fast tempo football. And then as soon as, let's say, you see, it was very smart. It's a very smart. This is also something that there are drills that literally train you how to do this. Basically, let's say, I'll give you an example. Say your number 11 is right here. You want to get to number 7, right? Number 7. How do you get to number 7? So you get the ball. Let's say number 9 here. White's number 9 takes the ball. Number 11 here puts pressure. So 1, 2, 7 comes up. Boom, 3. 7 has the ball. Number 11 is behind him. Now 7 can turn. This guy comes here. This guy comes there. Numerical advantage. This is a drill. This is a drill that you practice in training. How to gain a numerical advantage. If you know how to do it fast enough with intensity and with skill, you can do it. And this is what Liverpool did so expertly, and that is what Juventus did in the first half. But in the second half, we didn't do that anymore. We didn't do the bait. Why? Instead, we all moved together. You see, that's how you. There's also the drill on how to counter these other kind of plays by moving the press together. Meaning, if Leao comes up here, then what? So let's look at the numerical advantage kind of situation. All right. Let's keep on doing in the case of a 4-3-3. In the case of a 4-3-3. So in the case of a 4-3-3, which is like this, right? Case of a 4-3-3 playing against a 4-2-3-1. All right. Okay. So now let's look at that same drill or that same kind of action. Let's say 8 has the ball, right? And the winger, in this case, Mo Salah, wants to come and collect the ball in this area here, right? So obviously, in this area, who's supposed to go there? This guy, right? But in theory, if you do this fast enough, you can find Salah alone pretty fast. So, but what happens? This is what we saw all the time. Let's say Leao would attack Keita. Keita would go to Fabinho. Fabinho would go direct to Salah. And the problem also was that as they did this, they were able to go through the channel behind the lines. Go to Salah. Salah then Ateo goes to Salah. Then Arnold comes up. And then numerical advantage. And then basically we are chasing them. This is what we saw. Juventus was doing something very similar to us. Now, how do you counter that? How do you counter that? It's very simple on how to counter. But it's not simple. It's simple in theory, but in practice it's very difficult. So what do? You attack in numbers. You attack the press. You attack the press in numbers. So let's say in that case, Keita has the ball. So what do? Kessie covers this position here, right? Because that's where Salah wants to go. Salah wants to go in this, and that's what you read. Salah, so Kessie covers that position here. He comes forward, and he is already ready for him. He's already ready. Theo's already ready for Alex Arnold. And Brahim Diaz, the problem with Brahim Diaz, he's small, he's not very imposing, has to take care of the central playmaker. Okay? So the central playmaker is covered. Now look, if you attack this way and you press this way, all of a sudden, they don't have clear solutions. So it's about being able to understand your position and then attacking the press with a certain shape. If you're capable of doing that in a compact fashion it makes it very difficult. For example, now what would happen? Let's say they try to give him the ball to Salah, but Kessie is already on it. So now Salah has to either do a magic and find another player, or Salah is probably just going to go back, and then they're just going to have to reset. And this is how you get, and this is the key of attacking a team without the ball. All right, attacking a team without the ball is it's what gives you psychological domain over your opponents. That is the key. The key is not being able to attack with the ball. Milan knows how to attack with the ball. Against Liverpool, Liverpool was not only able to break our lines and find channels very easily by baiting our players out of position, but they're also able to stop our plays. While Juventus, on the other hand, was able to break our lines just in the first half, was able to break our lines, but they were not able to stop us. Milan was still attacking. Milan was still asking questions. Milan was still able to attack. So it doesn't really matter if you can attack the ball. What really matters, if you want to, let's say, beat a team and dominate a team, is not allowing that team to play their game. Basically, not allowing them to attack you. And we saw this against Lazio. Milan was able to do this against Lazio. You saw in real time that the way the team was positioned, basically, Milan was positioned in this formation right here, in this posture, let's say, the red team, but way up the field, covering all the spaces. And Lazio just could not put 2 or 3 passes together, right? But Klopp is very smart. Klopp figured out how to break our lines and how to find players in between the lines. Allegri adopted that same solution. But then we saw it that Milan fixed it in the second half. And as soon as Milan fixed it in the second half, I was very confident that Milan could score, because at that point you could tell that Milan had dominion over the game. And that's very important. That actually, what happened in that second half against Juventus, to me, is maybe the most important thing that has happened this season so far. Because that defensive posture as a whole team is extremely important. If Milan can repeat that defensive posture against Liverpool, against Atletico Madrid, against Porto in the Champions League games, then it's going to be very difficult for teams to dominate us. So the question is Milan going to be able to do that? We don't know. Klopp is definitely a smarter, more tactical experience with much higher pedigree than Pioli, but you never know. There's always up and coming coaches that can beat the big guns. So that's happened a lot of times. So we got to see if Milan can repeat this and can repeat it against the other teams. Now against Venezia, Milan has to continue to play like this. They have, even against the small teams, if you adopt, it's easier against the small teams to adopt your defensive posture, and even maybe to take a little bit more risks in your defensive posture against the small teams, because smaller teams don't have super fast technical players that with one touch can lose you. But Milan has to continue with this defensive posture, this compact posture that goes up the field altogether and goes down the field altogether. It has to be one compact unit in which is very difficult to penetrate through the channels. So the positive thing is that we saw it in the second half, and we pretty much saw that if Milan would have done the same thing in the first half, Milan could have won this game, and right now we would be first. But anyway, we did not lose. We got a point out of a very difficult stadium, so we should be pretty happy. Going into the Venezia game, we know there's a lot of players that are missing, actually. We have Ibra is out, Giroud is out, I think Calabria is still out. I read there's a few. Kjaer is going to be out for precaution. But all of this doesn't really matter. All of this doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we still have the players to beat a team like Venezia. So now comes the next round. Venezia, Spezia. These two games are the maybe two of the most important games of the season because these, in theory, should be easy points. And a team that goes far is a team that takes advantage of these kind of games. So losing points to these teams would be a crime. It would be a crime. Milan cannot lose points against these teams, and Milan has to face both these teams with extreme focus, extreme seriousness. They cannot lose half an inch of focus. They have to keep this defensive posture going. They have to make sure that they keep the lines compact. They got to make sure that they take their chances because against Venezia and against Spezia, you have to expect that that Milan is going to have the majority of the possession and is going to be pushing those teams into their halves, into their boxes, pretty much. So that means that we are going to be susceptible to counterattacks, and we got to really watch out for those counterattacks. But anyway, so the game against Juventus was a very negative first half in which Juventus pretty much adopted the same tactics that Liverpool did by baiting our players out of position, finding the channels, and then going then finding players between the lines. Then I mean, once you're between the lines, okay. So this is the thing that once you're in between the lines, right there, right, and you're attacking with the ball, it's just you against one person. It's just you versus one. It's much easier to attack a team in that way. That's why it's very important as a coach. You want to train your team to not have those kind of scenarios happen. You always want to have tight lines. You want to monitor the space in between those lines. And you want to make sure that those lines are never breached. And Milan has done this for months. Just Liverpool kind of opened them up. They kind of opened them up. Liverpool did whatever the hell they wanted with the ball against us. And then Juventus tried to replicate that in the first half. Juventus was successful at it, but then Milan, thank God, especially with Kessie and Tonali, you saw them much more organized. We saw Kessie and Tonali be much more disciplined in their ability to create, to be much more compact against the defenders there. So all good, and all good. We don't have really that much to complain about. It's a pretty positive. Milan is going in a pretty positive direction, and even though we have a lot of injuries, we have two fairly easy games ahead of us, so we should be able to do well. All right, so that was the tactical solutions against. That was the tactical solutions video. Milan versus Juventus. I didn't see what Antonio Skillard, what's up? How you guys doing? No, Antonio, you're weird. The goal at the beginning was a problem. You would just play defense. No, that's not true. I think a 4-3 would be best for us. Tonali, Casino, and midfield with Larry. Well, actually, while that was happening in the first half, I was watching the game, and I thought, 4-3-3 would have been better to fix what was happening. But then you saw that it wasn't a matter of a formation change. It was a matter of shape. It was a matter of keeping a compact shape. Because as soon as they became much more compact, things became more manageable. So it really wasn't about a formation change. If Milan played that same compact shape in the first half, Milan would have won that game. What's up, Skillard? What's up, Eastbourne? How you guys doing? Hope everything is good. Anyway, guys, unless you guys have any comments, have anything to say? That's all I want to. Oh, and this idea. Okay, actually, let's do this. This idea of just changing one player and changing position of one player is going to solve your problems. I mean, I don't want to even go into it. It's not. That's not how it works. The whole team needs to be compact. The whole team. But anyway, guys. So that's the video. Tactical solutions. Juventus Milan. Think about that. And when you look at the next game, I want you to see the whole team. Don't just look at quadrants. Look at the whole team and look at how the whole team defends and how the whole team interacts with one another. Having said that, good night, everybody from Los Angeles. Love you all. Arrivederci. Au revoir.